My name is Ethan Bradley. I just turned 19, and I thought becoming an adult meant freedom. Instead, it meant finally being old enough to protect the people who could not protect themselves. The day I left for college was supposed to be one of the best days of my life. August 15th, 2024, a date I had been looking forward to since I was 14 years old and first started seriously thinking about my future. I had worked for 4 years to get into State University with a partial academic scholarship, maintaining a 4.0 GPA through high school, while working part-time jobs to save money for expenses that my scholarship wouldn't cover. My dorm room was packed with everything I needed for my freshman year. Textbooks that cost more than I wanted to think about, betting that my mom had helped me pick out before she died, and a laptop that represented months of saving from my job at the local grocery store. My class schedule was planned out to the minute, with courses in political science, psychology, criminal justice, and philosophy that would set me up for my ultimate goal of becoming a lawyer specializing in family law. I was excited about the independence and opportunities that college would bring. For the first time in my life, I would be responsible only for myself. I could set my own schedule, choose my own friends, and make my own decisions without having to consider how they would affect anyone else. After years of being the responsible older brother and dealing with the chaos of my parents' divorce and my mother's death, I was finally free to focus on my own dreams and goals. But as I loaded the last box into my car that August morning, my 12-year-old sister, Emma, threw her arms around me and started crying in a way that should have set off every alarm bell in my mind. "Please don't go, Ethan. Please stay home." Emma had always been an emotional kid, but this was different. This wasn't the normal sadness of a little sister watching her big brother leave home. This was desperation, raw and terrifying in a way that made my stomach clench, even though I didn't understand why. At the time, I thought she was just being dramatic, the way little sisters sometimes are. Emma had always been clingy, especially since our parents divorced 3 years ago when she was 9. The divorce had been ugly and complicated, with both parents using Emma and me as weapons against each other, until finally Dad moved out and Mom was awarded primary custody. But then Mom died in a car accident the previous winter, and everything changed again. Dad moved back into our house to take care of us, and the custody arrangement became permanent when the court awarded him full guardianship. I was already 18 and planning to leave for college, so the decision was primarily about Emma's future. It's going to be okay," I told her, hugging her back and trying to comfort her, even though her tears were soaking through my t-shirt. "I'll be home for Thanksgiving break, and we can talk on the phone every week. I promise I'll call you every Sunday. But I don't want you to leave me here alone with Dad." I should have listened to the desperation in her voice. I should have asked more questions about why she was so upset about being alone with our father. I should have recognized that this wasn't normal sibling separation anxiety or fear of change. But I was 18 years old and excited about starting college, and I thought Emma was just afraid of being the only kid in the house. Our family had been through so much upheaval in the past few years that it made sense she would be anxious about another major change. "You're not going to be alone. Dad will be here," and Mrs. Martinez, next door, said she'd check on you guys if you need anything. "Besides, you'll be so busy with 7th grade that you won't even miss me." This was a lie, and I think we both knew it. Emma was going to miss me terribly, and I was going to miss her too. We had been each other's primary support system through our parents' divorce and our mother's death. When Mom and Dad were fighting, we would hide in Emma's room and play board games or watch movies to block out the screaming. When Mom died, we grieved together and took care of each other when Dad was too lost in his own grief to function. Emma pulled back and looked at me with tears streaming down her face, and I could see something in her eyes that I should have recognized as fear. "Promise me you'll come home if I need you." Promise me, Ethan. Of course I'll come home if you need me, but you're going to be fine. But what if something happens and you can't come home? What if you're too far away? Emma, state is only 4 hours away. If there's ever an emergency, I can be here in a few hours. Promise me you'll come home no matter what. The urgency in her voice should have made me ask more questions. Instead, I just hugged her tighter and promised that I would always be there for her if she needed me. Dad came out to say goodbye as I was loading the last of my stuff into my car, and everything seemed completely normal. He hugged me and told me he was proud of me for getting into college on a scholarship. He gave me $200 in cash for gas and textbooks and emergencies. He reminded me to drive carefully and to call when I got to campus safely. Take care of your sister, I told him, the way I had been telling him for months leading up to my departure. Don't worry about Emma. She'll be fine. You just focus on your studies and don't worry about what's happening at home. This conversation, which seemed caring and normal at the time, would later take on a sinister meaning that I couldn't have imagined. As I drove away, I looked in my rearview mirror and saw Emma standing in our driveway, still crying. Dad had his hand on her shoulder in what looked like a comforting gesture, but Emma wasn't leaning into him the way she would have if she was actually being comforted. I felt a pang of guilt about leaving her, especially so soon after Mom's death, when she was still grieving and adjusting to so many changes. But I told myself that she would be okay, that kids are resilient, and that she would get used to the new routine. The drive to State University took 4.5 hours, and I spent most of it thinking about my future instead of worrying about what I was leaving behind. I was going to major in political science with a minor in psychology, and then go to law school to become a family lawyer. I wanted to help families navigate difficult situations like divorce and custody disputes, partly because of what my own family had been through. The campus was exactly what I had hoped it would be. Sprawling and beautiful, with historic brick buildings and tree-lined walkways, full of students who looked excited and nervous, and ready to start their adult lives. My dorm was in Patterson Hall, a 4-story building that housed mostly freshmen, and my room was on the 3rd floor with a view of the main quad. My roommate, Jake Morrison, was from a small town about 50 miles away, and we hit it off immediately when I arrived and found him already setting up his side of the room. Jake was planning to major in education and become a high school history teacher, and he had the kind of easygoing personality that made him instantly likable. "So, what's your story?" he asked as we both worked on making our tiny dorm room feel like home. "Small town kid, first in my family to go to college, want to be a lawyer," I summarized. "Family must be proud." "My dad is. My mom died last year, so she didn't get to see me graduate or anything. But I think she would have been proud." "Sorry about your mom, man. That's rough." "Thanks. What about you? What's your family like?" Jake launched into stories about his parents and his 3 younger siblings, painting a picture of a chaotic but loving household where everyone supported each other and Sunday dinners were sacred family time. "Sounds nice," I told him, and I meant it. Jake's family sounded like everything I had wanted my own family to be. "What about siblings? You mentioned your dad. Any brothers or sisters?" "One sister, Emma. She's 12. She was pretty upset about me leaving for college. 12-year-old sisters are the worst about that stuff. My sister cried for like a week before I left." Yeah, Emma was pretty dramatic about it. As I unpacked my clothes and set up my desk, I thought about Emma and wondered how her first day back at school had gone. She was starting 7th grade at the local middle school, which was a big transition from elementary school. I made a mental note to call her that evening to see how it went. My first week at State University was everything I had dreamed it would be. My classes were challenging but fascinating, especially Introduction to Criminal Justice with Professor Martinez, who had been a prosecutor for 15 years before becoming a teacher. She talked about the legal system with the kind of practical knowledge that only comes from real experience, and I found myself staying after class to ask questions about different areas of law. "Have you thought about what kind of law you want to practice?" she asked me after one of these conversations. "Family law, I think. Divorce, custody, child protection cases." "That's tough work. Emotionally draining. What draws you to it?" "Personal experience, I guess. My parents had a messy divorce, and I saw how it affected my little sister. I want to help families get through those situations without destroying each other." Noble goal. If you're serious about it, you should consider taking some psychology courses along with your legal studies. Understanding human behavior and trauma is crucial in family law. I took her advice and added developmental psychology and abnormal psychology to my course load for the spring semester. I also joined the debate team, which met twice a week and competed against other universities in formal debates on current events and policy issues. The team was led by Professor Williams from the political science department, and the other members were some of the smartest and most articulate students I had ever met. "Bradley, you've got good instincts," Professor Williams told me after my first practice session. "You argue with passion, but you don't let emotion override logic. That's a rare combination." "Thank you, sir. Have you considered pre-law as a formal track? I could connect you with some resources, maybe help you get an internship with a local law firm." "I'd love that." For 2 weeks, college life was perfect. I was finally independent, finally pursuing my own goals, finally free from the responsibilities and complications of family life. I had friends who shared my interests, professors who challenged me intellectually, and a clear path toward the future I wanted to build. I called Emma every Sunday like I had promised, and our conversations seemed normal. She told me about school, about her teachers, about a new friend named Sarah who sat with her at lunch. She seemed to be adjusting well to 7th grade and to being the only kid in the house. "How are things with Dad?" I would ask. "Fine. He's working a lot, but that's normal." "Is he taking good care of you? Making sure you eat dinner and do your homework?" "Yeah, he's fine. He makes dinner most nights, and he helps me with math when I don't understand it." "Good. And you can call me anytime if you need anything, okay?" "Okay." Looking back, I can see that these conversations were too brief and too superficial. Emma was telling me what she thought I wanted to hear, giving me just enough information to reassure me that everything was fine without revealing anything that might worry me or bring me home. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday night in early September, and I was in my dorm room finishing a paper on juvenile justice reform for Professor Martinez's class. Jake was asleep in the bed across from me, and the rest of the dorm was quiet except for the occasional sound of someone walking down the hallway or a door closing. My phone rang, and the caller ID showed Emma's number, which was strange because she was supposed to be asleep on a school night. Emma was usually in bed by 9:30 on school nights, and she had never called me this late before. What's wrong?" "Ethan." Her voice was barely a whisper, and she sounded terrified in a way that made my blood run cold. "I need you to come home." "What happened? Are you okay?" "I can't talk loud." "He's in the hallway." "Who's in the hallway?" "Dad. Please just come home. Please." The desperation in her voice was unlike anything I had ever heard from her, and I immediately knew that something was very wrong. "Emma, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "He comes to my room at night. When you were here, he didn't do it because you might hear. But now that you're gone..." The words hit me like a physical blow. I understood immediately what she was telling me, and the horror of it made me feel sick. My hands started shaking, and my vision blurred as the full implications of what she was saying crashed over me. "Emma, Where are you right now? In my closet with my phone. I have the door locked, but I don't think he's going to leave me alone tonight. I'm coming home right now. Don't hang up the phone. Ethan, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart. I'm going to get you out of there. Just stay on the phone with me. I grabbed my keys and ran out of my dorm room, not bothering to wake Jake or tell him where I was going. The drive from campus to our house was 400 miles, and I had never driven that far in one stretch, especially not in the middle of the night. But I drove like my sister's life depended on it, because it did. As I ran to my car, Emma stayed on the phone with me, whispering updates about what was happening in the house. Dad had tried her bedroom door a few times, turning the handle and pushing against it when he found it locked. He had called her name and told her to open the door, claiming he needed to talk to her about something important. "I'm pretending to be asleep," she whispered. "But I don't think he believes me. What exactly has he been doing to you, Emma?" This was a question I dreaded asking, but I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening, so I could figure out how to protect her. "He comes to my room after I'm supposed to be asleep. He says he wants to check on me, but then he touches me in ways that don't feel right." "How long has this been happening?" "Since Mom died. It started a few months after the funeral, when I was still really sad, and he said he was trying to comfort me." "Emma, why didn't you tell me?" "I tried to. Remember when I asked you not to go to college? I wanted to tell you then, but I was afraid you wouldn't believe me." "I would have believed you. Dad said no one would believe me. He said people would think I was lying, because I was upset about Mom dying, and because I didn't want you to leave for college." This was the manipulation and psychological abuse that accompanies sexual abuse, especially when the abuser is a family member who has authority and power over the victim. Dad had not only been physically abusing Emma, but he had been manipulating her psychologically to prevent her from seeking help. "Emma, I believe you, and we're going to make sure he never hurts you again." "What are we going to do?" "We're going to call the police." "But he's our dad. That doesn't give him the right to hurt you." The drive felt like it took forever, but I made it home in 4 hours and 53 minutes, which meant I was driving well over the speed limit for most of the trip. I was lucky I didn't get pulled over, because I'm not sure I could have explained to a police officer why I was driving 90 miles per hour at 6 a.m. without breaking down completely. Emma stayed on the phone with me for the first hour of the drive, whispering updates about what was happening in the house. Dad had eventually gone back to his room, but she was afraid he would try again. She was still hiding in her closet, with the door locked, afraid to come out, even though the house had been quiet for a while. "Has this happened before?" I asked her during the drive. "Lots of times. Usually 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes more." Does he hurt you physically?" "Sometimes. If I try to push him away, or if I don't do what he wants me to do." "What does he want you to do?" Emma described situations that made me physically sick to think about. Our father, the man who had taught me to ride a bike and helped me with homework and coached my little league team, had been systematically abusing my 12-year-old sister for months. "Emma, I need you to understand that none of this is your fault. Dad says it is. He says I'm too mature for my age, and that I make him feel things he shouldn't feel. That's a lie. He's the adult, and he's supposed to protect you, not hurt you. He says that all fathers do this with their daughters, but that it's supposed to be a secret. That's also a lie. This is not normal, and it's not something that happens in healthy families." As I drove through the early morning darkness, I tried to process the fact that while I had been living my dream life at college, making friends, and pursuing my goals, my little sister had been trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't have imagined. I also tried to figure out what I was going to do when I got home. My first instinct was to confront Dad and demand that he stop hurting Emma, but I knew that wasn't a realistic solution. Men who abuse children don't stop, just because someone asks them to, and confronting him might put Emma in even more danger. My second instinct was to take Emma and leave immediately, but I wasn't sure where we would go or whether I had the legal authority to remove her from Dad's custody. What I knew for certain was that Emma could not spend another night in that house with him. It was 7:15 a.m. when I pulled into our driveway, and I could see that Dad's truck was still there, which meant he was probably getting ready for work. Dad worked in construction and usually left the house by 7:30, so my timing was either perfect or terrible, depending on how this played out. Emma met me at the front door before I even had a chance to knock, and the relief on her face when she saw me was heartbreaking. She looked like she hadn't slept at all, and she was still wearing the same clothes from the night before. "Is he awake?" I asked her quietly. "He's in his room, getting dressed for work. I don't think he knows you're here." "Good. Go pack a bag with everything you need for a few days." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. And then we're going to the police." Emma ran upstairs to pack, while I stood in our living room and tried to process what I was going to do next. This room was full of family photos and memories from what I had thought was a normal childhood. There were pictures of family vacations, birthday parties, school events, holidays, all the milestones that should have been happy memories, but now felt tainted by the knowledge of what had been happening behind closed doors. For my entire life, this man had been my father. He had coached my Little League team when I was 8. He had helped me with algebra when I was struggling in 9th grade. He had taught me how to drive and how to change a tire and how to file taxes. He had seemed proud when I got my scholarship to state, and he had given me advice about making friends and studying hard and taking advantage of opportunities. But he had also been secretly abusing my little sister, using his position of trust and authority to victimize a child who had no way to protect herself. When Emma came back downstairs with her bag, I could hear Dad moving around upstairs. He would be coming down soon to get his coffee and breakfast before leaving for work, and I needed to decide whether to confront him or just leave with Emma and deal with this through the proper authorities. But I was 19 years old, and I was angry, and I was not thinking completely clearly. So when I heard his footsteps on the stairs, I decided to confront him. "Emma, wait in the car." "Ethan, don't. Let's just leave." "Go wait in the car. Lock the doors." Dad appeared at the bottom of the stairs in his work clothes, and when he saw me, he looked surprised, but not necessarily guilty or afraid. "Ethan, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in class? We need to talk." "About what? And why is Emma's bag by the door?" "About what you've been doing to her." The change in his expression was immediate and telling. The surprise was replaced by something that looked like panic, and I could see him trying to figure out how much I knew and how much Emma had told me. "I don't know what you're talking about. She called me last night. She told me about you coming to her room." "Whatever Emma told you, she's confused. She's been having a hard time adjusting since your mother died, and sometimes she has nightmares that seem real to her." This was exactly the kind of gaslighting that Emma had warned me about. He was trying to make me doubt her credibility by suggesting that she was mentally unstable or confused. But I knew my sister, and I knew she was not confused about what had happened to her. She's not confused. She's being abused by her own father. "Ethan, you need to be very careful about the accusations you're making. And you need to be very careful about the crimes you're committing." For a moment, we just stared at each other. This was the man who had raised me, who had been my role model and authority figure for 19 years. But now I was looking at him as an adult, and I was seeing him for what he really was. "Where do you think you're taking her?" "Somewhere safe. She belongs here. This is her home." "Her home isn't safe anymore. I'm her father. I have custody." "Not after today." That's when I realized that this conversation was not going to solve anything. Dad was not going to admit what he had done, and he was not going to voluntarily give up his access to Emma. This was going to have to be handled by the legal system. "We're leaving now," I told him. "You can't just take her. I'll call the police." "Good. Save me the trouble." I walked toward the front door, and he stepped in front of me. "Ethan, you're making a big mistake. You don't understand the situation." "I understand perfectly. You're a child abuser, and I'm removing Emma from danger. Think about what you're doing. Think about what this will do to our family. You already destroyed our family." He was still standing between me and the door, and I could see that he was not going to let me leave without a physical confrontation. But I was 19 years old, and he was 45. I was taller and stronger and younger, and I was motivated by the need to protect my sister. "Move out of my way. We can work this out as a family. We don't need to involve outsiders." Move out of my way. He didn't move, so I moved him. I pushed past him. Not violently, but firmly enough to make it clear that I was leaving with Emma, whether he liked it or not. "Ethan, if you take her, you'll never be welcome in this house again." "Good. She'll never have to come back here again either." I got in my car where Emma was waiting, and we drove away while Dad stood in the driveway watching us leave. "What happens now?" Emma asked. "Now we go to the police, and we make sure you're safe." The police station was intimidating and bureaucratic, but the detective we spoke with, Detective Sarah Collins, specialized in crimes against children and was incredibly compassionate and professional. "Emma, I know this is scary, but I need you to tell me what happened," Detective Collins said gently after we had been shown to a small interview room that was designed to be less intimidating for child victims. Emma told her story, quietly but clearly. She explained that the abuse had started about 8 months after our mother's death, when she was 11 years old. She described how Dad would come to her room late at night when he thought she was asleep. She explained how he had told her that this was normal, that all fathers did this with their daughters, and that she should not tell anyone because people would not understand. She also explained how the abuse had stopped when I was home from school because I was in the room next to hers and might hear something. "That's why I begged him not to go to college," she told Detective Collins. "I knew that if he left, I would be alone with Dad and it would get worse." Detective Collins asked Emma to describe specific incidents, and Emma was able to provide details that were consistent and credible. She also asked Emma about physical evidence, and Emma mentioned that Dad had given her gifts afterward, special jewelry and clothes that she was not supposed to tell anyone about. "Emma, I want you to know that none of this was your fault," Detective Collins said. "What your father did to you is a crime, and it's never the victim's fault. What happens to my dad? We're going to investigate, and if the evidence supports charges, he'll be arrested and prosecuted. What happens to me? We're going to make sure you're safe. Your brother is 19, so he can petition to become your guardian if that's what you both want." This was something I had not considered, but it made sense. Emma could not go back to living with Dad, and she needed somewhere stable to live while the legal case proceeded. "Would you want to live with me?" I asked Emma. "Yes. But what about college?" "I'll figure it out." Detective Collins explained the next steps in the process. Emma would need to be interviewed by a specialist who was trained in talking to child victims. She would need to undergo a medical examination to look for evidence of abuse. Dad would be arrested and charged, and there would be a trial if he did not accept a plea agreement. "This is going to be a long process," Detective Collins warned us, "and it's going to be difficult. But Emma is very brave, and she has a supportive brother, so I think she's going to get through this." "What should we do while we're waiting?" I asked. "First, you need somewhere safe to stay. Do you have family or friends who can help?" "Our mom's sister lives about 3 hours away. I could call her." "Good." "Second, you should both consider counseling. Emma has been through a trauma, and you're going to be dealing with a lot of stress and responsibility. The next few hours were a blur of phone calls and arrangements. I called our Aunt Carol and explained the situation, and she immediately offered to let us stay with her while we figured out what to do next. I called my academic advisor at State and explained that I was dealing with a family emergency and would need to take a leave of absence. "How long do you think you'll need?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe a semester, maybe longer." "Ethan, I understand that family comes first, but I don't want you to sacrifice your education unnecessarily. Is there any way you could continue your studies while dealing with this situation?" I had not really considered this possibility, but she helped me explore options. I could transfer to the local community college and take classes part-time while taking care of Emma. I could also look into online courses that would allow me to continue working toward my degree while being flexible about my schedule. "The most important thing is that you don't give up on your future," she told me. "Your sister needs you to be stable and successful, not just present." She was right. Emma needed me to be her protector and guardian, but she also needed me to be a good role model who showed her that it was possible to overcome trauma and build a good life. That afternoon, Dad was arrested at his workplace and charged with multiple counts of child sexual abuse. Detective Collins called to let us know that the arrest had gone smoothly and that Dad would be held without bail pending a hearing. "What did he say when they arrested him?" I asked. "He denied everything, which is typical, but we have enough evidence to proceed with charges." "What evidence?" "Emma's testimony is very credible, and we found some corroborating evidence when we searched the house." "What kind of evidence?" "I can't give you all the details, but his computer contained some concerning material, and we found the gifts he had given Emma that she mentioned in her interview." The next few days were a whirlwind of legal procedures and emotional upheaval. The story made the local news, which was humiliating and difficult for Emma to deal with. Our neighbors and family friends were shocked and supportive, but Emma was embarrassed that everyone knew what had happened to her. "I don't want to go back to school," she told me. "Everyone's going to know, and they're going to look at me differently. We don't have to stay here. We can move somewhere else and start over." "But what about your college? What about your friends?" "Emma, you're more important than college or friends. We'll figure out a way to make this work." We stayed with Aunt Carol for the first week while I figured out what to do about housing and school and work. Aunt Carol was wonderful. She was Mom's younger sister, and she had always been close to our family. She took time off work to help us get settled, and she drove Emma to her interviews with the police and the medical examinations without making her feel embarrassed or ashamed. "Your brother is a good man," she told Emma one evening while I was on the phone with lawyers and social workers. "He's sacrificing a lot to take care of you." "I know. I feel bad that he had to leave college." "You shouldn't feel bad. What happened to you wasn't your fault, and Ethan knows that taking care of family is more important than anything else." After a week, I found a small apartment near Emma's school and enrolled in the local community college to continue my education. The apartment was nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom in an older building, but it was clean and safe and affordable on my budget. I also got a part-time job at a local law firm doing filing and research and other administrative tasks. The work was not glamorous, but it gave me experience in the legal field while providing income that would help support Emma and me. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" Emma asked as we moved into our new apartment. "With what?" "With giving up your real college experience to take care of me." "Emma, this is my real college experience. Maybe it's not what I planned, but it's real." Emma started seeing a therapist who specialized in helping child abuse victims, and slowly she began to heal from what had happened to her. Dr. Rebecca Martinez was patient and skilled at helping Emma understand that the abuse was not her fault and that she could build a healthy life despite what she had been through. "How do you feel about living with your brother?" Dr. Martinez asked during one of their early sessions. "Safe," Emma said. "For the first time in months. I feel safe." "And how do you feel about your father being arrested?" "Scared, but also relieved. I was afraid that no one would believe me or that he would convince people that I was lying." "What are you scared about? What if he gets out of jail and comes looking for us?" Dr. Martinez explained the legal protections that were in place to keep Emma safe, including restraining orders and the possibility that Dad would be in prison for a long time if he was convicted. Emma was also doing well in school, which gave her a sense of normalcy and accomplishment. Her teachers knew about the situation and were supportive, and Emma made friends with classmates who accepted her without judging her for what had happened. "Do you think I'm going to be okay?" she asked me one evening while we were doing homework together at our kitchen table. "I think you're the strongest person I know," I told her, "and I think you're going to be better than okay. I'm glad you came home. I'm sorry I left in the first place. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have listened when you begged me not to go. I should have told you the truth instead of just asking you to stay. You were 11 years old and being abused by someone you trusted. You're not responsible for any of this." The legal case took almost a year to resolve. Dad initially pleaded not guilty and demanded a trial, which would have required Emma to testify in court about what he had done to her. This prospect was terrifying for her, and we spent months preparing for the possibility that she would have to face him in court. "I don't think I can do it," she told me one night after a particularly difficult conversation with the prosecutor. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. But what if he gets away with it? Because I'm too scared to testify." "That won't happen. The prosecutor says they have enough evidence to convict him even without your testimony if necessary." But eventually, Dad's lawyer convinced him to accept a plea agreement that included a 15-year prison sentence. The prosecutor explained to us that this was actually a good outcome because it meant Emma wouldn't have to testify and because 15 years was a substantial sentence for this type of crime. Why did he change his mind about going to trial? Emma asked when we got the news about the plea agreement. Because his lawyer knew he was going to lose, I told her. The evidence against him was overwhelming. What evidence? Detective Collins had explained to us that in addition to Emma's testimony, they had found other evidence that supported the charges. Dad's computer contained searches for inappropriate material involving children. They had also found the special gifts he had given Emma, which she had hidden in her room because she felt guilty about accepting them but was afraid to refuse them. Most damning, they had discovered that this was not the first time Dad had been accused of inappropriate behavior with children. There had been an incident at his workplace several years earlier where a female coworker had reported that he made inappropriate comments about her teenage daughter. The incident had been handled internally and not reported to police, but it established a pattern of behavior that supported Emma's accusations. "Will I have to see him again?" Emma asked. "Not if you don't want to. He'll be in prison for a long time, and when he gets out, there will be a restraining order that keeps him away from you." Good. That same year, I successfully petitioned the court to become Emma's legal guardian. The process was complicated and required multiple court appearances, background checks, financial assessments, and home visits from social workers. At 19, you're taking on a huge responsibility, the judge told me during the hearing. Are you prepared for the financial and emotional challenges of raising a teenager? Your Honor, I've been taking care of Emma for almost a year now, and we've both been doing well. I'm working and going to school, and Emma is thriving academically and emotionally. What are your long-term plans? I'm planning to finish my degree and then go to law school. I want to specialize in cases involving crimes against children. And how will you balance those goals with your responsibilities as Emma's guardian? I'll do whatever it takes to make sure Emma has a stable, loving home while also pursuing my education. She's been through enough trauma. She deserves to have a guardian who's committed to building a good life for both of us. The judge granted my petition, and Emma and I officially became a family of two. Over the next few years, Emma continued to heal and grow into an incredible young woman. She maintained excellent grades, participated in school activities like the debate team and student government, and developed healthy friendships with peers who supported her. She still saw Dr. Martinez regularly, and occasionally she would have difficult days when the trauma would affect her mood or her sleep. But overall, she was resilient and determined to build a good life for herself. "I want to help other kids who go through what I went through," she told me when she was 15. "How do you want to help them?" "Maybe become a social worker or a therapist, or maybe work with the police like Detective Collins. I think you would be amazing at any of those jobs." "Do you think what happened to me will always affect my relationships with people?" This was a question that came up frequently in her therapy sessions, and it was something I worried about too. "I think what happened to you is terrible, and it's something you'll always remember," I told her. "But I also think you're strong enough and smart enough to not let it define your whole life." "Do you think I'll be able to trust people?" "I think you'll be careful about who you trust, which is actually a good thing. And I think you'll be able to recognize healthy relationships because you've learned what unhealthy ones look like." "Do you think I'll ever be able to have a normal family?" "Emma, we have a normal family. It might not look like other families, but we take care of each other, and we love each other, and we're building a good life together. That's what family is." When Emma turned 16, she wanted to change her last name legally so that she would not have the same name as our father. "I don't want to be connected to him in any way," she explained. "What name do you want to use?" I was thinking about using Mom's maiden name, Parker, Emma Parker. I think that's a beautiful way to honor Mom's memory. The name change was approved by the court, and Emma Parker began her junior year of high school with a new identity that reflected her choice to move forward rather than remain tied to her past. "It feels good to have a different name," she told me after she received her new driver's license and social security card. "Like I'm starting over as a different person." "You're still the same person, Em. You're just choosing how you want to be known." "I want to be known as someone who survived something terrible and became stronger because of it." I transferred to State University during my junior year and was able to complete my degree on schedule despite the 2-year detour through community college. The transition back to a 4-year university was challenging, but my community college experience had prepared me well academically and personally. Emma was proud to attend my graduation ceremony, and she cried when I walked across the stage to receive my diploma in political science. "I'm proud of you for not giving up on your dreams," she told me afterward. "I'm proud of you for being brave enough to ask for help when you needed it. Do you think Mom would be proud of us?" "I think Mom would be amazed by how strong and smart and kind you've become despite everything you've been through." I was accepted to law school with a scholarship that would cover most of my expenses, and Emma and I moved to the college town where I would be studying. She finished high school there and was accepted to several universities with scholarships of her own. "Are you sure you're going to be okay if I go to college?" she asked me when she was making her decision about which school to attend. "Emma, you're 18 years old. You've been through more than most adults ever face, and you've come out stronger. I think you're ready for anything. But we've been together for so long. What if I need you? Then you'll call me and I'll be there. But I think you're going to discover that you don't need me as much as you think you do." She chose a university about 2 hours away from my law school, close enough to visit regularly, but far enough to have her own independent experience. Emma is now a sophomore majoring in social work and she volunteers with a local organization that helps child abuse victims navigate the legal system. She's in a healthy relationship with a young man named David who knows about her history and supports her goals. How did you know David was safe? I asked her when she first told me about him. I watched how he treated other people, especially people who were vulnerable or different. And I told him about my history early in our relationship to see how he would react. And how did he react? He was angry that someone had hurt me, but he didn't treat me like I was damaged or broken. He just wanted to understand how he could support me. That's exactly how someone who cares about you should react. I think you taught me that by the way you reacted when I told you what Dad was doing. You taught me what real courage looks like when you found the strength to call me that night. Emma and I still talk every week, and we visit each other regularly. She's become one of my closest friends as well as my sister, and I'm constantly amazed by her wisdom and strength. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come home that night? She asked me recently during one of our phone calls. Yes, and it terrifies me. I probably would have just endured it until I turned 18 and could leave home. You should never have had to endure it at all. But I did endure it, and I survived it, and now I'm helping other kids who are going through the same thing. Mom would be so proud of the woman you've become. She'd be proud of the man you've become too. Not everyone would have given up their college experience to protect their little sister. It wasn't a sacrifice, Em. It was a privilege. I'm in my final year of law school now, and I've been accepted to work as a prosecutor specializing in crimes against children after I graduate. Detective Collins, who is now Lieutenant Collins, has agreed to be one of my references when I apply for admission to the bar. You and Emma have both turned a terrible situation into motivation to help other people, she told me recently. That takes incredible strength and character. Emma's the strong one. I just did what any big brother should do. Not every big brother would have done what you did. Not every 19-year-old would have been willing to take on that kind of responsibility. I didn't really have a choice. You had lots of choices. You chose to believe Emma. You chose to protect her. And you chose to build a life that put her safety and well-being first. Those were all choices, and they were all the right choices. Emma will be my first reference when I apply for admission to the bar, and she's planning to attend my graduation from law school next spring. You turned out to be exactly the kind of big brother I needed. She told me recently. You turned out to be exactly the kind of person I'm proud to call my sister. Sometimes people ask me if I regret leaving college to take care of Emma, if I think my life would have been easier if I had stayed focused on my own goals and let the system handle her situation. The answer is absolutely not. Yes, taking on the responsibility of raising a teenager when I was 19 years old was difficult. Yes, it meant sacrificing some of the typical college experiences that my peers were having. Yes, it meant working part-time jobs and living in small apartments and worrying about money and legal issues and making sure Emma had everything she needed. But it also meant protecting someone I love from continued abuse. It meant giving Emma the chance to heal and grow and build a life free from fear. It meant learning about strength and resilience and the power of family bonds that are chosen rather than assumed. Most importantly, it meant becoming the kind of person who stands up for vulnerable people instead of looking the other way when they need help. The night Emma called me at college was the night I became an adult in the truest sense. Not because I was legally 19 years old, but because I was confronted with a situation that required me to put someone else's needs before my own, to take on responsibilities I was not prepared for, and to fight for what was right even when it was difficult and scary. Some people become adults gradually, through small steps and incremental changes. But sometimes becoming an adult happens all at once, in the space of a single phone call that changes everything you thought you knew about your family and yourself. If you're listening to this, and you know a child who might be in danger, please don't assume that someone else will take care of it. Please don't tell yourself that it's not your business, or that you might be wrong about what you're seeing. Children who are being abused often cannot advocate for themselves. They depend on adults who care about them to notice the signs and take action. The signs of child abuse can include unexplained injuries, behavioral changes, fear of specific people or situations, inappropriate sexual knowledge, regression to younger behaviors, and reluctance to go home or be alone with certain adults. If you see these signs, you can call the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4-A-CHILD. You can contact local police or Child Protective Services. You can talk to school counselors, teachers, doctors, or other professionals who are trained to handle these situations. And if you're a young person who is being hurt by someone who is supposed to protect you, please know that it's not your fault and that there are people who will believe you and help you. You can call the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4-A-CHILD. You can tell a teacher, a coach, a counselor, or any trusted adult. You can call 911 if you're in immediate danger. Most importantly, you can know that abuse is never normal, never acceptable, and never your fault, no matter what the abuser tells you. My name is Ethan Bradley, and at 19, I learned that sometimes becoming an adult means stepping up to protect the people who cannot protect themselves, even when those people are being hurt by someone who is supposed to love them. Even when protecting them means sacrificing your own plans and dreams. Even when doing the right thing is the hardest thing you've ever done. Because family isn't just about blood relations. Family is about people who show up for each other when it matters most. And sometimes showing up means driving 400 miles in the middle of the night because someone you love whispered, "I need you," into a phone. Sometimes being a big brother means being willing to fight the whole world to keep your little sister safe. And sometimes being an adult means understanding that protecting innocent people is more important than anything else you thought you wanted to do with your life. The most important lesson I've learned is that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite being afraid. When Emma called me that night, I was terrified. I was scared of what I might find when I got home, scared of confronting my father, scared of the legal system, scared of taking on the responsibility of caring for a traumatized 12-year-old. But I was more scared of what would happen to Emma if I didn't act. That fear, that love, that determination to protect someone who couldn't protect herself, that's what made me an adult. Not my age, not my legal status, but my willingness to put someone else's safety above my own comfort. Today, Emma is thriving in college, building healthy relationships, and working to help other survivors of abuse. She's strong and confident and kind, everything our mother hoped she would become. And I'm about to start my career as a prosecutor, working to ensure that other predators face consequences for their crimes and that other children have advocates fighting for their safety. We both carry scars from what happened to our family, but we've learned that scars can be evidence of survival, not just reminders of trauma. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us become the source of our greatest strength. Sometimes the night you think might destroy your family becomes the night you discover what family really means. And sometimes a whispered phone call at 2 a.m. becomes the moment you realize that love is stronger than fear and that protecting the people you care about is the most important thing you'll ever do with your life. Remember, if someone you love needs you, nothing else matters. Not school, not career plans, not your own dreams and goals. Nothing matters more than showing up for the people who count on you, because that's what real adults do. They show up. They protect the vulnerable. They fight for what's right. And they never, ever give up on the people they love.